Right, and we're back. You know, we had a bit of a heated intro, but we're all good now. We're back.
Got our system.
Yeah, we got our system. Yeah, I mean, we always got to get our shots off in it. You know, it's the TBC way. But again, we're here today to have a more of a philosophical episode. You know, kind of take it back to our roots. But yeah, we're going to talk today about a big topic. I feel again one that the UK fans are very big culprits of always asking. It's like, drop the album, even if they dropped like 5 months prior. Like, what the fuck?
Yep.
So we're gonna talk how long should artists leave between albums? And yeah, it might seem like quite a redundant question, but I think there's a lot of angles that people probably haven't even considered or touched on, and we'll do our best to kind of touch on them today. I think it'll be a quite interesting conversation, so
yeah,
so stick around. Yeah, I mean, kind of starting off, right, I'll start with your personal opinions on, like, what are your personal expectations, just, broadly speaking, on how long people should take between albums?
I think if you're just doing it like a broad stroke of music in its entirety, I think the normal consensus is 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
I think, like, classically looking at it, right? Like, not in the age of, like, crazy single releases and, like, TikTok sound bites of songs, etc., etc. Like, regular artists releasing an album every 2 to 3 years, I think makes sense. That factors in the kind of, like, release, the, like, build up, the promotion to the album, and then if you're kind of, like, a medium to large size artist, you've got like a world tour, you've got like a tour of Europe, you've got a tour of wherever. That's going to take up to 12 months sometimes, and then then you're only leaving yourself like a couple of years to actually get the inspiration for the next album. So I think 2 to 3 years makes sense, factoring all of that in. Yeah.
Okay, fair. I think I'm quite similar as well. Like, I feel I think it definitely differs amongst genres and artists, but I think on average, it's probably like 2 to 3 years where you're thinking, okay, I've kind of soaked in the previous album, I'm happy with this. Like, you might even live with that album forever, but it's like, okay, cool, like, I'm ready for some new content. I think it's very rare circumstances where I want something quite soon or I want something way in the future. Like, those are very like rare on both ends of the extremes. But yeah, I think I'm pretty similar on that one, to be fair.
Yeah. And I think going from that, we're probably an anomaly, and we'll get to why. But yeah, for some more context, clearly there's the culture of this. I know we talk about the UK scene quite a lot, but like the general consumer of music isn't usually, I guess the word is content with waiting 2-3 years for an artist's album. So why do you think it is that people just are not willing to wait for good music? They're not willing to wait for that body of work.
I think it's just the velocity of music these days and the streaming as well.
Yeah.
Because I think if you always listen to people who are around, like, when vinyls and CDs were a thing, it's always just like, oh, I bought this album, I just kept playing it because, all I had was like £10 to buy a CD. I didn't really have money to just go and keep buying albums. So when they did buy an album or like 2 albums, they'll just play it all the time because that's all they had. Yeah. Whereas obviously now, you go on Spotify that new Music Friday thing, and there's music every fucking week. So you're listening to so much, you just feel like there's so much of abundance. You just kind of feel like, why isn't my favorite artist like in the fold? Do you know what I mean? But I think it's more, and also I think it's the thing, just to kind of the attitude towards music. I know people say this. I do think there's some truth to this, where people do just kind of take albums at surface level now. It's kind of like, oh, it's like chewing gum. It's like, okay, cool. I know most of the words. I've enjoyed it. I'm done. Like, do you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what album it is. It all goes through the same grinder. And it's really strange when people do that, to me personally, because when people call albums great, right? Like, this album is amazing, right? Like Psychodrama or Big Conspiracy. No word of a lie, John. They've been asking for a new J Hus album since January this year. He just dropped 12 months ago. What the fuck are you talking about? Like how soon do you think these people do this stuff? Like, they have other stuff to do. They have a life. Do you know what I mean? Like, why are you being so unreasonable right now? Like, but people are genuinely like that. They just feel like, oh, like, I think in America, it's more about I think they're more on a 2-year cycle. But here, it's like, if fucking Heady One goes for 3 years, he is finished.
Particularly when we have the, particularly when we have the insight into a career, into an artist's personal life, and that's kind of a I'm losing my words here. Like that's a good, like it's a privilege, right, to have this insight into an artist and know, wait, J Hus actually has this life going on. Like he's dealt with so much, like mental health wise, going to prison, all this kind of stuff going on. We have the privilege of knowing that, and yet we're still going to be like, no, he needs to drop. We need it now. We need the next thing now.
Fuck all that. This is way more important. And you know what is? You know what's even worse, right? And again, both sides of the Atlantic are culprits for this. And this is definitely more of a hip hop thing, and it will transition to the next topic. But there's this whole consensus of if you don't drop within this certain time frame that I'm imposing on you, then you can't call yourself the greatest, and other people can't call you the greatest. Like they're saying that about Kendrick right now, right? Also, he's on the other end, right? It's been like almost 5 years, and people are like, yeah, if Kendrick doesn't drop this year, he can't be considered the greatest. Like, fuck all the 3 to 4 critically acclaimed albums he just dropped. That means fuck all it, because right now, if you don't drop right now, that's all that ever matters in it. I think people are very much focused on the now. Like, if there's no good music to listen to, which is almost never true, but there's no good music to listen to, then it's like, fuck yeah, I want my favorite artist to drop now. Everything's boring. I think that's where people are at right now. I think that's why that culture's kind of come up. Yeah, I agree.
I definitely agree with what you're saying about kind of the streaming age, the TikTok age, which just makes music so, well, two things. It makes it easy to digest, and it makes it easy to dispense of.
Yes.
So like it's so easily accessed, but it's so equally just dispensable, because you're like, cool, I've heard that, nice song, but there are 50 other songs on the chart that sound exactly like it, so I'm good with that. So yeah, that's why I think that's why people just want that instant gratification. Like, I need the next one, I need the next one.
And to be fair, most people consume music like that, and you know what, that's fair. Like, obviously, most people aren't us in it. Most people aren't gonna be listening to like 50 albums a year. Don't say that's.
But you, the listeners, probably are, because that's what you're listening. So we'll keep it sweet that way.
But like, yeah, I do think, like, there has to be some sort of like expectation, like, and the thing is, not, I just don't get it. Like, why does an artist have to drop every year? Like, if you think an artist is that good, like, there's no, I think it's a bit of a contradiction or a bit of an oxymoron to be like, this artist is amazing, but their music can't last more than 12 months. Like, can they really be a great artist if you really can't just be like, because I mean, for example, Good Kid, Mad City, right? I mean, people still listen to that today. Like, that's just the album that just keeps living. And there's albums that, 2-3 years later, you're like, holy shit, yeah, I didn't even catch that. Oh yeah, I still enjoy it now. Like, it's just, you'll always play it. Like, you know what I mean? Because that's just what good music is. I feel like if an album, it really is just boring to you after 12 months, it's probably not a great album, to be fair. That's just how I feel like.
And you mentioned UK fans in that as well. What do you see? You see them as the biggest culprits of this, I'm assuming, and why is that?
Yeah, for sure.
Why the UK scene?
I think it's just the culture. I think the culture around hip hop in the UK by the artists is different, because most of them, I know people don't want to believe this, but most of them see it as a money grab. And that's not to say people in America don't, but there's way more Kendrick Lamar's like, I am really just about the craft. I'm really trying to be the best ever. There's more of that. Not many, but there's more of that than here. Like, there's not many people, probably less than 5 legitimately, who are like, I am not dropping an album or record unless I think it's the best I can do. It's just not common, right? I think most of them is like, oh shit, I fucking did this rap for Bants, and now people want to see me do a tour, and fuck, here I am.
Do you think?
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to ask you, do you think that I know you call it like a money grab. For some, obviously, it's literally this is their livelihood, and they're like, no, I need to make some money. I need to make some songs. Do you think part of the issue there is that where in the US you have the opportunity to kind of blow up elsewhere as a rapper, but in the UK market the UK rap sound isn't as well respected overseas. So there's such a small market, and it's quite saturated here, that it's more difficult to blow if you're an album artist.
I don't know if that's fully true, because there's so many local artists in America that we'll never hear of, but they're famous in the city. Like, also, I think that thing about Atlanta, right? Like, Atlanta's people that they listen to most of the music that comes from Atlanta, because that's all you need. That's just one city. It's much smaller than London.
But what I'm saying is that we listen to their music.
Not all of them. That's what I'm saying. Not all of them. That's what I'm trying to say. There's tons of artists all over America, right? New York, not just the city, the state, Chicago, Philadelphia. There's probably someone in Philadelphia right now. Everyone loves them in Philadelphia. You go to their house parties, everyone play them. We will never hear of them. We don't have much of that in London, so you can still be like a city legend. I just think here, like I'm saying, like I do think it's a factor, but there's not many local legends in this country because the UK scene is just hard to break into. Like people just have, it's quite weird. People just have a weird standard of music here. Like they're either really like hype on that one trap artist, or they really like, what's the word? Just kind of they give the cold shoulder to the ones like I guess some artists like full cold shoulder. I don't care. Like it's kind of like binary in that sense, and I think that's why it's just harder to break into and be like, I'm from London, everyone in London loves me. It never works that way. It's always some weird up and down shit. I think that contributes to it as well. So it's like, okay, for example, right? Okay, we said this about drill when Ebenezer came on, right? Like, the best drill artist changes like every 3 to 6 months. Literally.
That's the point I've got written down here.
Carry on. Yeah, so it's like, okay, so if I look at that as an artist, I'm like, shit, if I literally take 1 year to work on my craft, I am finished. Like, I'm not going to get the same headline shows. I think the time window to be big in this country is so much smaller because people's attention spans. I think there's less people as well. There's just less people. And the attention spans are small as well. And pretty much the same in America. But the proportion of people who will stick around is also a lot smaller because of that. So I think that's what accounts for it as well.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think, drill is definitely... It's not the only culprit. It's one culprit of it. Because there are like you say, so many artists appearing each and every week. And none of them stick... Like, not many of them are like sticking around on top long enough to then release the project. Like you're saying, like you can't disappear for a year and make an album. Also, is especially if you're like a terrible phrase, but like quote unquote struggling artist, like making your art is your livelihood. So is it the most cost effective way to go pay for studio time to make a whole album, whereas you could make a song at home, self-release it, make 10 of them and hope that one of them blows? Like I don't necessarily know whether it's the most cost effective way to make it at the moment for some artists.
Yeah. Also, like a lot of the UK artists, like especially in terms of rappers, they're so hell bent on that independent shit, isn't it? Like, I mean, so a lot of them, it's like, like if they don't have the money, it's just not gonna happen. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, there's truth. I mean, and again, like obviously, like if you want to talk between like moral and like financial bounds, obviously, me personally, I wouldn't release music that I just don't believe in. But obviously, most people don't give a fuck in it. Like I think everyone just has like the worst misconception you could have is like everyone who drops music cares about music. It's just not the case. Some people's like, oh shit, I was selling drugs a year ago. Fuck it, like here I am. I mean, like, the story about Fredo literally making a song for bands, and he went to prison and everyone was asking him to drop an album. Like that's just literally how it is sometimes in this country. Like, yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. Yeah.
Let's kind of go on to some kind of examples. Get into some specific artists and their catalogues. So yeah, are there kind of some immediate examples, artists that kind of jump out at you when you think this guy, this girl, this person drops way too much, way too frequently?
Okay. I'll say this, and then again, like I like to be the balance of the world, John. Do you know what I mean? Like, when one person has all the infinity stones, I'm trying to break them. Do you know what I mean? So I'm the cunt that does that, right? So everyone's high as fuck. That pure fucking sativa on Griselda right now, right? Everyone's loving this shit. Oh my gosh, West Side God, he's a genius. Benny's the star. Conway's the lyricist. I think they do way too much. Do you know what I mean? Way too much. But that's not saying everything they do is bad. That's not even saying any of the stuff they do is bad. But there are the type of guys like, fuck, like every 3 months, if that, there's another EP or album to listen to from one of you guys. It's like, give you a break. Like, and you guys are calling yourselves legends. Like, I'm barely soaking in the last one. And here you are now again. Like, what the hell? Like, the whole B-sides thing with West Side God as well. It's like, fucking hell, it's like 20-something tracks. Like, give me a break. Like, let me live. But yeah, I think that's an example. I mean that's it. That's the extreme of it. Yeah, I mean, fuck it, I'll give that one. What do you think about that one, John? You're laughing.
No, I'd agree with you. I mean, I'm big on Griselda. I know on our anniversary episode when we had Tandy and Mike's on, we talked a little bit about them. I said, like, the sky's the limit for them because of their output and because of the producers they have around them, the sound that's become so synonymous with them. Like, people love it, and it's only blown up more. Why not continue releasing at this rate? I think it's a bit too much. I will agree. Like, as someone that enjoys albums and likes to take them in, I do struggle to keep up. But I think fully, like, if some of these albums start to kind of drop off, or maybe they don't hit the highs that, the previous ones have hit, like from a King to a God or The Plugs I Met, that little series. I think if the beats aren't as solid because they keep doing this for the next couple of years, then maybe that suggests they might tone it down a bit. But yeah, their output is a bit ridiculous at the moment.
Yeah. Obviously, this is not to say they shouldn't do it. Like, I'm just a pleb.
Benny's on the other side. Benny, maybe not as much, but then he did release the Pirates Picasso little EP
and Plugs
well.
I Met too came out this year as well. Do you know what I mean? And we're not even near the end of the year. I think he might even
Conway's got a second studio album this year coming, hasn't he? From a
There
God to a something else.
I don't know. I haven't heard that one.
The sequel to From a King to
Oh,
God.
really?
The sequel.
Oh, okay.
On, yeah.
Fair enough. But yeah, no, I'm just saying, that's not to say it doesn't work for them. Like, okay, the example I'd give, right, is like, obviously everyone loves the Last Dance documentary, right? Well, obviously Dennis Rodman, one of the best fucking defenders of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The thing with him, right, like, there is a thing where, like, if you think about something too much, it can fuck it. Like, I think some artists, for most people, the hours you put in will directly correlate with your performance.
Yeah.
But there are some people who work so much on the intuition of their craft, whereas if you put too much hours in it, they're like, oh shit, I'm thinking about it too much, or oh, actually, can I actually do that? Or is that actually a good thing? And then they don't have the magic to say, do you know what I mean? Like, when they're doing the thing. Same with writing, do you know what I mean? So I think there are some artists, very few, but I think Griselda's that example, right? Like, perhaps if they had to think about it too much, maybe the quality wouldn't be as good, do you know what I mean? So you can make that argument, but I think for most artists, like, okay, come on, man, like, take some time out. I think obviously a good example would be Migos, right? Culture 1, everyone's like, holy shit, like, concise, you lot really did it this time. And then they kind of like, okay, let's fucking do that shit. And we're like,
they did give 3 years between Culture 2 and 3, though. Give them that.
Yes, they did. Fair.
Yeah, so that's more about quality control. I think that's definitely more about quality
But then
control.
they all came out with their solo projects in between, right?
That's true.
Yeah, so, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Currency is an artist, I would say. Big fan of him, but yeah, I mean, he's similar. It's definitely a running theme in the underground hip hop scene, or that kind of Currency's kind of, it's kind of related to that scene, right? So he drops, twice a year, probably at least. And given, I think my approach to it is that given that he works with producers on albums, he's Freddie Gibbs in that sense, right? So he works with Harry Fraud, he works with The Alchemist, amongst others. It'd be nice to see him take a break and like fully close the chapter of one album and of one body of work with a particular producer in order to then start the creative process for the next album again. Because when you're continually going from one album to the next, it's just like one long album, right? Especially when you're working with different producers, like there are different ideas going on. I think they should, I think Currency needs to take a bit of a break between albums.
I mean, again, this is my last example, right? Do you know who needs to fucking take a break off album dropping? It's gonna be a niche example, but you're gonna know this one. Fucking Rock Marciano, bro. Like, that guy drops albums as if he drops albums. He drops albums as if they're like fucking, the Squid Game where they're walking on the glass. He just has to run through them. Like, he drops albums as if it's like the fucking squares on the fucking bridge, mate. Like, I don't really understand like why he drops so much. Like, the guy drops so much, bro. Like, he drops like, I mean, there was a time where he dropped like maybe 6 albums in 1 year. Like, the guy's insane. Like, the guy. I will say, don't believe Spotify, because some of the releases on there are re-releases. Yeah. No, they're re-releases. Oh, re-releases. Oh, okay. They're they're remastered versions. But even album-wise, he definitely drops like more than 3.
Drop a lot.
Yeah, he does drop a shit ton. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck, bro? Like, for me, I know people love rocking it, but fuck me, bro. Like, he drops a shit ton. Shit ton.
Marcialago was great in 2019, and then Mount Marcy last year was a very good album.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, he has good output.
He does release a lot. We'll say that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? I mean, DaBaby. I don't think we needed back-to-back albums.
Who?
Those years, DaBaby.
Oh, Christ. Yeah,
I don't think we needed that.
Fair enough.
Surprised by NAV that he doesn't release more albums. Surprising that he could definitely get away with it. Given that
yeah, for sure.
Given that given that how shit he is and the fact that people love him and that they've accepted it, then why not just release more? You can get away with it, mate. You can drop a 20-track album and it all sounds the same. Why not just drop 3 albums in a year?
Maybe he's actually trying, John. Have you ever thought about that?
I don't care if he's trying. It's not good. Let's move on, though. On the flip side of that,
cool.
Examples of artists that drop, way too infrequently.
Okay, I'll give an example here. Here's one, innit? Here's one. I'm not going to talk about it when we split into it. I think there's definitely different expectations for R&B singers and hip-hop singers, but one guy is Frank Ocean, right? Fuck me, this guy gets away with, because he's got a fucking cult in it. Like, I mean, you can't tell a Frank Ocean fan anything else apart from like he is like he invented music. To be honest, if you ask him, he probably invented music, mate. This guy has dropped what? 2 albums.
Like Nostalgia Ultra was Genesis. Yeah. It was the first.
Yeah, literally. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember back in the day when I was in school, people were like that whole like 70-something track, the Lonnie Brew, whatever. People were like, oh my gosh, that was so sick. It's like, it's fucking 72 songs, bro. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, come on. Like, why are you just not thinking right now? Your brain is literally just static at the moment, isn't it? This guy has dropped 2 albums in the last 10 years. Endless doesn't count. Fuck out of here. Like 2 albums in the last 10 years, mate. Like, come on. Like, at some point, right? Like, don't get me wrong, Frank Ocean is a very talented man. There's no doubt about that. But like, come on, man. Like, come on. 2 in the last 10. In the last 10. Like, it's kind of hard for me to kind of gauge, like, what, like, don't get me wrong, like, you gotta live life and you gotta do this and maybe you want to take a break and all that stuff. But like, fuck me. Like, it is kind of like, for me personally, I don't think his music lasts so long where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm still just living off Blonde. Like, I care so much. I think everyone knows my feelings about Channel Orange. Like, I love it, but I'm not spiritually attached to where you guys are. So, what do you think? Am I going too far? Or
I think there's definitely a double standard with him as opposed to other artists. I'll say that he is one of the artists where the art kind of justifies it, because I think he is that good. I think he's brilliant. I think Blonde was great. I disagree with you. I think Channel Orange was amazing. So I think where the art justifies it, let them have time off. We can take a couple of years to digest it. We can still be playing it 2, 3, 4 years later, and I won't get bored. But 5, 6 years, yeah, it's taking a piss a bit. Unless you fully retired, or unless you don't want to make music anymore. But it's that, yeah, people have a lot of bondage to him, so they'll give him a decade and be like, no, it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same shit people do with Jay Electronica, and I have no.
Oh, I've written him down here.
Yeah, I do not know why people gave that guy time of day. The guy had no albums. Like, why you wait 10 years, bro? Like, there's other stuff happening in the world. That's like someone saying, oh, I don't know, like, my new bar. I'm gonna build a new bar. It's gonna be great, and it's like, what, we can't just drink alcohol until he builds his new bar? Like, what the fuck? Like, there's other shit. I mean, there's fucking a pub on every corner. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and then when it comes, it's like fucking the wood's cracking off, the chairs are squeaky. Like, that's how I feel about Jay Electronica's album with it. So,
Rihanna.
Oh yeah, for
you
sure.
just need to accept that it's not coming.
Yeah, and what was it, R9? People called it. I think R9. Yeah, the 9th album. I mean, that one I kind of do get. I know a lot of people say it. Because obviously Rihanna did go through a phase where she was dropping like every fucking year. And obviously now I think she realised, you know what? I'm going to work on other stuff. I'm going to take the time out. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it was a bit funny at first, but I think for me it's just a bit tiresome. Like, I don't really get it. Like, then again, I understand I am a Grinch and I don't find most of these things interesting. But the whole, like, dropping the album thing and, it's like a joke now. Like, oh, if you lot didn't do this, you would have dropped the album. Like, that's not fun to me, innit? Like, I just think, oh, whatever. Like, if it really is a thing where she just has it and she's not dropping it, I think that's a bit weird. If she spoke out less about it and stopped saying, oh yeah, I'm going to drop it soon, or oh yeah, it's done, then I think people care less. But I think that whole kind of like blue balls of the album. It's just like, yeah, I don't really care to engage in that, to be honest.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Let's go forward before we go back to something else. But I guess leading on from that, given that it's been so long for Rihanna and so long for Frank Ocean, so long for Gambino, between Awaken My Love and whatever the hell he called the last album. Do we see a drop in quality if you release too frequently? And then also I'd say on the spin side of that, if you don't release enough, do you kind of lack the touch when it comes back to it, or can you kind of come back after a long time away and in fact, you haven't quite got it anymore? What do you think about that?
Okay, so I'll tackle the first one. I think for most people, dropping too often will lead to a drop in performance, and that's why and again, people don't bring this up because people just like to talk from the book of, the holy book of Twitter. They don't actually get thought behind this. The reason why people call Freddie Gibbs an amazing rapper isn't because he's dropping like To Pimp a Butterfly every year. It's not that. It's that he's had a level of consistency and he's done it every fucking year, maybe sometimes twice a year. Yeah. That's what's so impressive, right? And so it's when artists do actually drop every year, multiple times a year, and it's like, oh, raw, like, you're not shit. Oh, you said another shit. Oh, I like this one. Oh, yeah, I really like this one. Oh, I like this one. If you do that, it's like, wow, like, who the hell could do this? That's crazy. What a run. But I think if you're someone like, who drops air often and shit? I'm trying to think. I probably just don't listen to them, do I? Probably maybe like Young Thug, right? When Young Thug takes his time, right? And he drops stuff like Jeffrey and stuff like that, people are like, holy shit, this is crazy. Or like, I feel like sometimes they're just kind of like throwing darts, like whichever one hits a bullseye or close to it, it's like, for some reason that justifies everything else. This is the same thing people do with Drake. For me, it makes no sense, but they have this idea of, he's just kind of like, running autopilot, but if he drops one great album in this whole time period, then it's all forgiven. It's like, okay, whatever. That's just mad hopium in it. Like, do you know what I mean? Whatever. Yeah. You live by that, innit? But like, I think this, people like Drake, I think everyone says, right, if you took some time out, maybe it would work. And people do say, okay, but tops, it was 3 years between Scorpion and now, but he's still dropping music.
I was gonna say, he's released every year since
2015.
Yeah, every year, and he dropped twice that year. Every single year he's released a project.
Yeah, the guy just doesn't know how to fucking just take a break. And the thing is, he is one of those guys where it's like, he's probably the most frustrating example of that, because he's probably one of the people at the pinnacle of his genre, right?
Who needs a break.
Yeah, who needs a break, who could take the break more than anyone else in his genre, more than anyone else in the world almost, right? You really could take a break, and just decides not to. He's like, nah, fuck it. And it kind of like leads to like this lackluster run of albums that somehow people are trying to justify because he has to cater to all these audiences and he has to go on tour and all this other bullshit. Do you know what I mean?
Because how can you develop your sound? How can you necessarily develop as an artist and reflect and become a little bit objective about your path and your catalogue if you are releasing if you're making songs every single week?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
You're never going to change your sound. You're not going to suddenly wake up, you're like, it's been 5 days since I've made this. I've decided actually I'm going to have a little change of personnel. I want to work with this producer, and I think I'm going to incorporate some elements of this sound, and I want to talk about this particular. It's like, that's not going to happen if you don't give it some space. Like, that's why you need time away. Damn, it's frustrating.
No, for sure. Is that when people say, oh yeah, I just really want to see the world and all this stuff, and then they engage with the same like shit they do back home, and it's like, where are we going on holiday this year? Fucking Dubai. Like every year, innit? Like, do you know what I mean? It's never anything different because you don't want to give yourself a chance to do anything different. It's always just the same shit with the same people. But for sure. Like, that one just makes no sense to me. I think, again, like I said, like I try to loop back again, like in summary, I think the people who do drop often and it happens to be adequate, those are the ones who are severely talented, like super talented, because like, holy shit, because most people, you just run out of things to talk about as well in general. And some of them definitely do, but if you kind of attack these things from multiple angles and you're interested, it's like, wow, like you really are like something special. Do you know what I mean?
I think on the second question that I asked you about, okay, well then does dropping too infrequently for you as an artist?
Yes.
Does that result in a lack of quality? I think I have a theory about this. I don't know whether it actually lands, but
Okay.
say you're like a very singular artist in the sense that you have a very specific vision for your music. You do a lot of the work, and that could be production, that could be like vision for the album, that could be like the arrangement of instruments or whatever. And you have a very fixed team as well around you. Then I think a couple of years, more than 2 or 3, as we're saying, 2 or 3 is the average, maybe 3, 4, 5 years break between albums. I don't think that will affect the quality as much, because you're not going to be kind of influenced by those changing external factors, because you have the vision and you're like, I know I'm only going to have 2 features on here, and I know the bulk of this album is me. Like Leanne La Havas, right, for example, 5 years, perfect example. I think Frank Ocean, I know it's been a long time, but I think he's again another example of that. Barely any features, doesn't really work with many people on his music. Obviously doesn't feature in the meantime because he's so focused on his own stuff. And then when they come back, they're not relying on the energy of the studio. They're not relying on the energy of others to like bounce ideas off other artists. And like, so then when they come back, they're like, cool, right, I'm ready to make the music. That's my theory. Whereas if you're a heavily feature artist like Drake, or even, I don't know whether this is a good example. No, this I was gonna try and tie it into why Jay-Z's 2006, what was it, Kingdom Come didn't work, because he took out 3 years and that was the most he'd ever taken out.
I mean, he retired.
Yeah. And then when he came back, it didn't really land. But then 444 came along after a big break, and that was amazing. So that doesn't work. But if you're a feature artist and like I'm saying, you rely on like the energy of other people and all of that kind of stuff, taking a big break doesn't often work, I don't think.
You know what? I fuck with that. I think I would agree, because I think, to tap on Jay-Z as well. Jay-Z's whole thing, like that was his whole thing, right? Dropping every year in the 90s and 2000s. And I think he did drop every year until he quote unquote retired, right? And I think if you look back, and I know people, again, because now it's cool to say Jay-Z's the best of all time, you know, but if Jay-Z took breaks between his albums, I am for sure believing his discography will be way stronger, right? Like, I think it's 100%.
Because I'm saying the break didn't do good for him.
I get that, but I think he was not. I think his whole business model was different then. I think before he was like, I'm just going to be on the charts every year, right? It was never, that's the thing, it was never a debate whether Jay-Z could rap. It was never that. Like, obviously you see stuff like Reasonable Doubt, not as many features as his other albums as well. Stuff like Blueprint, not many features. Do you know what I mean? When he actually takes time out to actually focus on his pen, he drops amazing work every time. It's when he's doing that shit where it's like, you know, I gotta get number one album every time, I gotta have more than the Beatles, and then it's like, fucking hell, like if he had like even 2 years between albums, his discography, I say maybe as great as people think it is now, it would be way better. It would be way better. I think he's one of those guys. But I 100% agree with you. I think I never thought of it in that angle. I think a good example, obviously not music related, but I mean not hip hop related, but it's like Adele, right? Like I think Adele, like she never has any features, right? A lot of singers do that shit, but whatever. Like they'll have no features. And I get it does take a long time when there's no one else to fill that space, no one else to kind of add another dimension to the story and stuff like that. So it's like, but one thing I will say though, have you ever gone to like Genius and read the lyrics for like a singer's song? It's like fucking 2 paragraphs, bro. Like, what? This took you 5 years to make. Like, what the fuck? Like, you're saying way less shit than a rapper. And these rappers, like, they're fucking rapping at like double, triple time, and it's like a whole fucking like 2-page thing per song, and they do that every couple of years. What's taking you 5 years to be like repeating a chorus for a song? Like, sorry, that's the part I don't really fuck with. Like, why does that take so long? Like, why is that some sort of skill that we just accepted? That's the thing, right? But I think on the whole, though, I would agree. Like, when you are just kind of telling your own story, it is a lot. It does take more time compared to like you're bouncing ideas. You're always in the studio with people, things of that nature. No, for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, let's loop back quickly and kind of, I think we started to touch on it. You mentioned obviously with the singers, are there different expectations for rappers compared to R&B singers? You know, Frank Ocean compared to Kendrick, like you've kind of mentioned, and why would that be? Because obviously I'll kind of start Frank Ocean being the example. People have just kind of accepted. They've respected the rollout. They trust the process, right? Like if we wait 5 years, it's because he's going to drop a fire album. And I think I'll put in underground artists as well with that, because on the flip side of Griselda, flip side of Boldy James and all those guys, there's Car, right? Where it's such a unique cult following, where people respect that it's him literally, and when I say doing everything, I mean doing everything. Produces it, writes it, raps it, he advertises it himself, he rolls it out, he literally does the post packaging for the vinyls, because he even tweets about it and says, "You stingy motherfuckers complaining about bent corners." He was like, "I wrapped the shit myself."
I saw that.
So yeah, but that was a bit of a side note. But yeah, rappers definitely. I feel like there's pressure to constantly release.
Do you know what it is? I think there is a difference, and I say this is one of the reasons. I think there must be, but when I think about it, it feels like there's just more than one reason than the one I'm giving right now. The one reason I would give is that because rap is quite competitive, and everyone's always obsessed with the fact of who is the best right now. So I think people literally think, you know, if you don't drop every year or two, how could you even be involved in that conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's more pressure to be like, oh, you need to drop so we can call you the best. And it's like, okay, that's a bit unreasonable. Like, why do I need to be part of your little fucking game of who's the best? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I do think there's a certain window where it's like, okay, if you don't drop within like 3, 4, 5, like, can I say Kendrick's the best right now? No, Kendrick hasn't dropped in how fucking long. But that doesn't mean Kendrick isn't one of the best generally. Of course he is. But like, if we're talking about if someone came to me, who's the best rappers right now, I mean, I wouldn't say Kendrick. I'd be like, Tyler.
What do you mean by that though?
I mean, because like, when I say who's the best right now, I'm looking within like the last 2 to 3 years.
But how's that different from who's the best rapper generally? Do you mean of
right
all time?
Now? No, I said who's the best right now. Like, who's doing it?
No, but how is that different from a list of who's the best rappers generally who are around?
Because I think more people focus on what you're saying. The latter was like, who is the best ever, and the more you add to your discography, the more they can either validate or invalidate whatever argument they have, right? So the more, like for example, like people always compare Kendrick's discography to Kanye's, right? Flawless. So I think some people are waiting for Kendrick to have a shitter. So it's like, see, there you go. See, Kanye's better than Kendrick because Kendrick had one bad album and Kanye had none. It's like, I think people do that shit.
I'd still say Kendrick right now because he hasn't retired. Like he's on a feature. If he wanted to rap today, he would still be as good as he's ever been.
Yeah, of course we know that. Do you know what I mean? But I'm saying this is what the fans think, right? Like I think people get caught up in that. I think that's the thing. But I'll say if I said who is really doing it right now, I couldn't say Kendrick because he hasn't dropped anything. Not saying Kendrick won't do it when he drops, but like if we're talking about like people who have been around 2-3 years, that's a long time in terms of music. And there's been no Kendrick. I can't just be like, I mean, I'll give it to him out of respect, but he's a very stringent example, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to just throw everyone in who's just great. Like, I mean, you have to be kind of active. I mean, that's the same shit they did with like Lady Leisha and Nadia Rose and all that shit with the fucking Champions League thing. You do have to be kind of like active in some respect. Like, no one will be like, yeah. I mean, people say with Jay-Z because he does a feature now and again, he stays relevant. Kendrick was just gone. Like, Kendrick was just gone for the last 3 years or so. So, I think that is a big thing of why, in terms of hip hop, people are just like, you need to drop. If you want to be involved in that conversation, you got to kind of stay going. It's kind of like football, right? Like, you know, how if Neymar has a life, you know, a career-ending injury and he's not playing, and then someone else is playing football, for some reason Neymar's just not one of the best to ever do it because I mean, he was playing whilst you know you couldn't play, like whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like people do that shit. So I think that's the thing. Whereas singers, I think there isn't that expectation, right? There's no expectation to be like the best singer, right? That's just not something people do.
People definitely people think of it in such less. What's the word?
People have way more patience with it, for sure.
Yeah,
way more patience with it. Like, oh, I need to take it in, or like I think people associate like singers with heartbreak a lot. So it's like, oh, I need to like sit down and take it in. It's been so long, and then I think they can kind of go back to whatever fucked up situation shit they had and like, you know, project onto the new album. Like, I think that's what people do. It's a bit weird. I don't think it's fair, but that's just what it is. I don't get why. Like, for example, and some of my favorite artists do this, right? Like Erykah Badu hasn't dropped in like 10 years. that Hello mixtape doesn't count. Sade, when was the last time she dropped? It's got to be like maybe more than 15 years.
She's
So it's
retired.
like-
Come on.
No, she's still active.
No, but as in, she's probably not going to release anything unless it's like a compilation.
But she always leaves a long time between albums. Like between Lovers Rock and Soldier of Love is 10 years. And it's been 10 years. 11 years since Soldier of Love. So you never. There's certain artists where that they're legacy artists. So maybe I'm being a bit of a prick there. But like someone like Eric Badu, she definitely hasn't retired. Do you know what I mean? Like she just doesn't do it. Like Jay-Z hasn't retired. He's not going to drop soon. But obviously Jay-Z's on the rap side, isn't it? Singers. Like SZA. Like I think now people are getting a bit angsty, but that's only because I think people thought the album was coming in it with a single rolled out. But if she didn't do that, I don't think people would be as fussed. I think
your point
what do you
about
think?
I think your point about the combative nature of rap definitely holds true because, like you say, you have such as like the peak of the rap mountain is so small. Like not many people can stand on it at once. Like as soon as you get up there, someone's right behind you, dragging you off. So they can have their like couple of weeks on the top. So yeah, definitely R&B. When you're not like an R&B feature on a rap song, like when you're just releasing R&B songs, people definitely consider them as something to be listened to in a certain setting, or like, oh, I'm really going to take this one in. Like people definitely think of rap of R&B songs as deeper, so they probably give it more time.
Yes.
Even though, like you say, sometimes R&B songs are about a quarter of the words that a rap song is, and rap songs can be very deep too.
And they have ghostwriters. Like,
yeah.
What the fuck? What were you doing it? Whatever.
Like, can you imagine if Adele came out with it was ghostwriter? Yeah, someone ghostwrote "Hello, it's me." Like, come on.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just ridiculous. Like, I mean, it's like almost every R&B single, almost every single, most of them have writers. I mean, that's why the ones who write for themselves do get props. Like, obviously, like Leanne Habas, she writes most of her music. Frank Ocean, Childish Gambino, all that stuff. But it's just kind of like, come on, like, what is taking so long, mate? Like, what's going on? But I think it's just a culture thing. It's just one of those ones you can't really explain. Like, people just have more time for singers. I think we just I'll you gotta take time out. Or I think there's this weird assumption that like, oh, they need time to like go through relationships and get their heart broken again so they can like release another album. It's like, why is it always about relationship, you guys? Like, why can't you just take a day off? Like, do you know what I mean? I think that's why a lot of people were surprised. I mean, here's a quite surprising example. When Cleo Soul dropped Mother, I think a lot of people, myself included, right? Well, like, holy shit, it's only been a year since Rose
Yes.
Dark. I was not
Example.
expecting that. Do you know what I mean? I was not expecting that at all. Do you know what I mean? But then also she came back and it was banging. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's a good album. It's a really good album. All things considered in terms of 2021. So it's like, it's obviously possible to do this. I just think it's a thing where I think they know they can get away with it. Like, they can tour off it and it gives them life. And yeah, I don't know. It's just a more patient audience.
Yeah, you definitely get, like you're saying, Cleo Soul didn't need to do it, but you get a grace period, right? Between if you're dropping something like, I think an example you have is Tyler, right? Like he's been dropping quality albums very frequently. Like since Flower Boy, then we had Igor 2 years later, and then we have suddenly this year have Call Me If You Get Lost. And that's like, he doesn't need to do it because he dropped such a quality project. In Igor, he had that period of time where people are like, cool, that's amazing. Like, we're not expecting anything for a while. So then he can go back and have that breathing room in the studio. If he wants to, at home or in the studio, he used that time to be like, cool, there's no pressure now. I'm going to go into the studio, like reinvigorated, and however long it takes. If it's a year, amazing, I'll drop it. If it's 5 years, cool, I'll do that as well. But I think having that having the pressure taken off you by dropping a quality album allows you to probably sometimes go back and release even quicker.
Yeah,
100%.
No, for sure. I think you're absolutely right, because I think the same thing happened with Kendrick, isn't it? I think after To Pimp a Butterfly, I was very surprised when Damn was like right around the corner. It was like less than, just about 2 years after. I was like, wait, you just dropped one of the most like fucking, significant
acclaimed albums in rap history.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? And you're like, yeah, seriously, I'm back. Oh, fuck it, let's go again, boys. Like, what the hell? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, why are you doing that? Like, what? I just thought, and the thing is, yeah, like, Damn is not a bad album by any stretch of the imagination, but it was definitely rushed. And if you don't get that, then yeah, you're just a pleb. Like, you can still be great and still, be overrated. But like, I feel like Damn was one of those ones where it was like, yeah, this was way too soon. Like, it definitely feels rushed. The concept feels a bit forced as well. And it's like, okay, like if you literally gave yourself another year, maybe we're talking about a whole different, album, to be honest. So yeah, that one was that quite kind of confused me. I think sometimes you get lucky, like Tyler. But it's like, oh shit, yeah, it works out. But I think a lot of artists, when they really go for that one, it's like, oh shit, okay. It just, it's a hit and miss right after that. What do you call it? Magnum opus or whatever the fuck. So
yeah. And especially if you're if you're an album artist, right? Like, I think that an album artist being an artist who isn't really going to release many singles, they're not really going to feature a huge amount, then yeah, people give you a bit more grace period because they're like, well, they're working on an album, so let's leave them alone. Whereas if you're a Drake and you're releasing singles and freestyles with Rick Ross every other day, then yeah, people are going to learn to expect more, and then you get caught up in a habit of releasing music all the time.
That does tilt the shit out of me though when people do call artists singles artists when they do drop whole albums. Like, that's not a good defense for your favorite or whatever. But like, it's not like your favorite tracks are there and it's just blank and like the rest of us just like empty tracks. Like, there are songs that we do have to critique. Do you know what I mean? But and I get what you mean. But yeah, it is annoying if people call them like singles artists. Like, yeah, they do drop albums. So it's not like fucking Minions where they actually are just dropping singles.
Yeah.
Like,
no, I mean,
you know what I mean?
Like in terms of album artists, I mean someone who will release a couple of singles that are on the album. They're not just going to release singles. Yeah, I know what you mean. But yeah, where should we go from here?
I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Is there a cut-off period? where, like we were saying with Sade or these other artists, like, is 6 years too long? Like, I don't know, D'Angelo literally retired and then came back, 15 years later after Voodoo with Black Messiah. I still think that is an incredible album, but
yes, I think okay, I think if your cycles are more than 4 years, maybe even 5, then I think at that point you have to be considered a legacy artist, because like, again, it is just music, guys. Like, it's not you're not literally like one of the fucking disciples of Jesus writing the Bible as apples. Like, it doesn't take that long. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it shouldn't take you 5 years. Like, they're not spending 5 years working on their art. Do you know what I mean? Some of them just don't give a fuck. So I think if you're in terms of active artists, I for one would say if you haven't been dropping for around 5, like, especially if you're not doing features as well, right? I would say, I think features kind of extend the shelf life of an album.
Yeah.
But if you're doing features in between them, but if you're not doing any features, you're not dropping any album, then I feel like maybe after like 5 years, I don't think you can really be considered active. To be fair, unless I think either that or you're moving into legacy mode. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I can see that.
Yeah. So I think that's not long for me, to be honest. Yeah.
And I guess from there as well, we kind of talked about it with singles artists and album artists. Like, how long should it be before you release your first album, right? Like, how many singles, how many little 3-4 track EPs can you get away with, or should you be allowed to get away with? Because I'll go first. I personally think if there aren't good reasons for it, I think you're taking the piss if you're going more than anything 3 years and up. There's a debate to be had for 2 years, but anything 3 years and more, and you're still releasing singles on the regular. So we know there's not a problem with your inspiration or with your like creative process. Because I know music's coming out, but I know you haven't got an album. Like, I would say anything more than 3 years, and it's becoming a bit of a joke then. Like,
and I feel like it happens often as well, doesn't it? Like, especially when you're hyping up the album and nothing comes. That's the worst part. That's how you know something is really bad in the ether. For example, The Big Day or Her's debut album or potentially SZA's second album. Like, I feel like that.
Certified Lover Boy.
Yeah, Certified Lover Boy. Like, when you keep hyping up this shit and there's delays and then it's a whole different name, it's a different album. Like, you know, whatever the fuck the fall off is. You know what I mean? The fall off might as well be One Piece at this point. So yeah, I mean, what the hell? Like, so like, yeah, I think when that happens and it's like, oh, it's a bad taste in my mouth. Like, I don't think something's going really wrong here for sure. No, I get you.
I agree. Yeah, just that kind of.
Yeah, I think that right. So I think I had one question for you.
Yeah, go on.
But no, I think it's gone. I think it's just it's lost. It's lost now.
All right.
But I tried to hit you with a surprise, but I fucking forgot about it, didn't I? But no, I think you know what I mean? It happens. It happens.
Yeah.
I think that's it. So I mean, yeah, what do you guys think? Like, you know, should artists drop frequently? Should artists? I mean, yeah, how long is too long? Like, you know, if your favorite artist disappears for like 3 years, are you okay with that? Is that fine? Do you know what I mean?
And like, does it depend on also like, is it okay to release an album every year if you know, necessarily aren't wanting crazy good quality? You're not wanting a like well thought out concept. You just want a collection of songs, a compilation album like Her. If you, I don't know, you're wanting just like hot tracks and a collection of singles, right? So yeah, it depends on your criteria of what you want for an album. But yeah,
for sure.
Like Tom said, let us know. Give us a tweet on TVC Pod on Twitter, Vinyl Collective Pod on Instagram. Leave a comment in the comment section if you're listening on YouTube. Give us a review, obviously, on Apple Podcast. Make sure you click follow on all of our playlists on Spotify. And you can obviously hit our email up as well, vinylcollectivepod@gmail.com. That was a mouthful. That was a lot of places you can get in touch with.
You got through it there.
But yeah, as always, we like to round out our episodes with the Now and Then playlist. You can obviously also find our Spotlight Series playlist on Spotify. We have a couple of other playlists. We made one Valentine's Day, you know, if you've got some plans this weekend, pop that on. But yeah, the Now and Then playlist, we each choose a song that's been released in the last year or two, and then we pick a throwback as well. So I'm gonna hit us off here. So my Now song is exclusively the acoustic version by Tiana Major. And then my my Then song is gonna be it's gonna be Jay-Z. It's gonna actually be from the album that we mentioned that didn't go down too well. From let me just get the name of
Kingdom Come?
Yes, from Kingdom Come. It is Minority Report.
You know what? I'll say this on the record, right? I actually fuck with that album. I think that album got way too dunked on. Like, when I got Q always had that's his worst album. It's not. It's Blueprint 2. That's the right answer. Blueprint 2 is the worst album. But yeah, Kingdom Come is not that bad. It's got some bangers. Like, Joey, it's got Show You What You Got.
The beat on that.
Hollywood.
Come on. Yeah, Show Me What You Got is great. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's crazy. It's got Kingdom Come, the actual song. Like it's got some good songs. It's not a 10 out of 10, but it's by no means a shit album. So yeah, I'll say that. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Okay, so my Now song is Blue World by Blue, the one and only. Oh, holy shit! That
album should be called 20 Shades of Blue because every song. What's with the song name? I mean, talk about it.
He loves doing that. Isn't it? No, man. He loves doing that shit, innit? So, no, I don't hate it. And I think my Then song, is it? How recent is this? Probably not as recent. It's 3 years ago. It's Understood by Mick Jenkins, sorry, from Pieces of a Man. So,
we need an official cut off. That's you're really pushing it.
Yeah, but we have a Now and Then 2022. I know that place is just getting way out of hand. Like you can't stop it. It's like the.
I think today, in fact, let's put a marker down. Today, these 4 songs that we just picked will be the first 4 songs on Now and Then 2, becoming
cool. Okay, let's do that
to Spotify near you. So yeah.
Okay, cool. No worries. Okay, cool.
Start a new chapter.
And yeah, And
Hello
with
there.
that,
How can I be of
see,
service?
this is what then my fucking Google does that. I'm not even cutting that out. Yeah, so anyways, that concludes our episode. We'll be back next week to talk more music bullshit with you guys. And you'll be there to join us. We'll see you
See you
then.
then.